Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Arena Craft Podcast, a show focused exclusively on Magic the Gathering Arena and wedding gossip. My name is Arjun. I'm one of your hosts. Sorry, Soren couldn't show up this week, so I don't know.
Oh my God. Everybody now when I use that freaking avatar calls it the Arjuna avatar. I'm not serious problem. You've ruined Twitch chat. So good work on that.
You'll have to stick to Jace, CGB.
I guess so.
You'll have to stick to Jace.
The V-neck enthusiasts of the world apparently can't be told apart.
I mean, hey dude, he's a stud. We all know it. So yes, by the way, joining us today is Jace's day off, CovertGoBlue, and we are stoked to get into Crimson Vow today. The set just dropped. We've both had like 2-ish days to play it. And how's the vibe check, CGB? How you feeling?
Well, I'm always excited to record the Arena Craft podcast, and it's been going through my head what I want to say about this set in this format for falling asleep last night. It was just going through my head the same line over and over. So as much as I like to keep it positive and exciting, and of course I always strive to be entertaining, if I'm truthful with you, this is how I sum it up in a line. The new set. I love the cards. I hate the format.
Yeah, dude. Oh my goodness. Well, I have some of my own gripes to level. So definitely, we're gonna get into that. I have some meta related stuff. I have some general arena related stuff to talk about. So it's gonna be a packed show here. First, I just wanted to mention an exciting partnership which we've finalized, which is that the Arena Craft podcast is now officially sponsored by Untapped.gg. And I feel like unless you've been living under a rock, you probably already would know about Untapped.gg. CGB's been using it and also been partnered with them for a while now. And so it's something that we're both really using on a day-to-day basis. Really great place to track your stats. They recently added a collection tracker, which has been a huge feature for me because I'm kind of a completionist and I like to keep track on how things are going. Also, they've had really good metagame tracking stats. And usually, I mean, it's a bit early in the format right now, but usually when CovertGoBlue and I are actually going to check out metagames and try to get any kind of data, we're both consulting Untapped.gg. So if you're not already using it, I highly recommend it. It's a deck tracker, it's a stats tracker, it's a collection tracker. It's tracking a lot of really good stuff. Anything you want to add, CGB, about Untapped.gg?
Link is going to be in the description. And if you click through and try it out, it does support the podcast now that we've got that cooking. So please try it out. It's free.
Yep, exactly. We get a very small amount, but it is an amount from Untapped.gg whenever you follow that link. And so if you were going to download it, we appreciate you doing it through our link. Keeps them happy. It keeps us happy. It's also a way you can support the show without having to spend any money. So please go ahead and check it out. Untapped.gg is the nuts. It's one of those things that I think both CGB and I were already using before either of us were sponsored with it. So that just goes to show it's a great product. Totally free, so there's nothing to not like about it. All right, so okay, CGB, I also want to talk about the format and how it feels.
Yes.
But first of all, I kind of wanted to level a more general gripe, okay?
Okay, we got Gripe Corner. We're starting off a show, the first show with Crimson Vow Legal. I got my little dig in there as the tease, and now we're going straight to Gripe Corner. What you got for us this time?
Well,
wait. Is it people not playing with new cards, not crafting new cards this time? Because that's what it was last time. Is it the same?
It's the same. It is the same. You got it. Okay. I guess I've become pretty predictable, but I've got a new angle on it. Okay. So we're going to go for the jugular this time. Why would we not? It's a vampire set. So last time I kind of phrased it like it was an arena player problem. But in kind of just thinking about it more, and also in seeing some of the responses to that kind of previous podcast that I'd done, I'm really starting to think that it's a case of don't hate the player, hate the game. And
We're trying to repair and like rephrase the argument because last time we ignited a little bit of controversy. I understand.
you
Reputation
know,
control is important. Brand is important. Go on, Arjuna.
I mean, I appreciate the subtle dagger there, but honestly, Crafties, if I'm in a foul mood, I'll just rake into you. I have no problem doing that. So this is not my desire to repair things with you, even though that would be a very political and diplomatic thing to do. But no, I actually genuinely, I've been thinking about it, and I've been feeling like set release is the most exciting time on Arena, like bar none. Would you agree?
Yes, for many different reasons, but go
It
on.
it's supposed to be, right?
Yes.
It's supposed to be like the 4 or 5 times that we get like a new standard playable set on Arena, like those weekends are supposed to be highlights. You know
Hell
what I mean?
yes.
That's supposed to be like those first dates that we look back on, right? Like, oh, honey, do you remember when we were just riding high and we had that first or second date? We like painted the town red and everything was great and it was just fireworks, right? Like we're supposed to feel that way about set releases. And I just like I can't tell you. I already have told you. I don't need to labor how depressing it is to go onto the ladder and to just play like mono white match after match after match. Or, depending on which little personal hell the matchmaker wants to put you in. For some people, it was Is It? For some people, it was mono green. Regardless, it's just a super bummer. And what it made me think was that I feel like Wizards is really dropping the ball on incentivizing people to play new cards with set release. And I think that we could spend a whole episode talking about how that part of the game could be improved. But suffice it to say, there are so many different options that an involved dev team could implement if they wanted to make sure that people played new cards on the set release. So, for example, I remember when Eldraine released, they had that little like no holds barred weekend or like little segment where you could just play any card you wanted. And I don't know about you, CGB, but like I tried a lot of decks and I did a lot of crafting after that because, I played like some Fires of Invention stuff that was really sweet. I played some mono green stuff that was really sweet. It kind of got me going on a number of different decks. And, frankly, like it could even just be as simple as like, okay, how cool would this be, right? So on set release day, you get one of those big like pop-ups, right? Like when you launch Arena when after a banning or after any big thing, they give you like that little check it out window or whatever. Here are your rewards or whatever. So on set release day, they could give you a little pop-up and it would just give you like maybe 3 tribal decks, right? Like try this humans deck, try this vampires deck, try this zombies deck. And it doesn't have to be like amazing cards. They don't have to make it rain with a bunch of rares, but they could just give you like a very, very solid, like playable on the ladder. You're going to get some wins, like good mix of commons and uncommons, chuck in a couple rares, just like solid vampire deck or whatever. And I mean, that could just be like a great basis for getting someone trying out vampires, right? Or I feel like there are so many different things that they could do to incentivize people to play new cards, or at least to try them out, right? And so it really made me think that it's like this combination of people feeling like the economy is against them. They don't have enough wild cards. They don't have any incentive. Basically, there's no incentive for them to not just play mono white, right? Like, especially if they've been playing historic, they're like, I already have Thalia. I'm just going to chuck 3 Thalias into my deck, hit send, let's go. So anyway, I feel like Wizards is really leaving a lot on the table by giving us basically nothing. We get 3 free packs. That's it. If we know the code, right? If we know about the code, which a lot of people probably don't even, then we get 3 free packs and that's it. That's it, gamers. That's all you get for a new set release. I don't know, CGB. This is what I've been thinking about. What are you thinking about?
Obviously, that's a argument that resonates. I had some people in chat calling it Free Pack Day, not Crimson Vow Release Day.
Oh, it burns, but it's true.
Yeah, it like holds, like it's that important. It's that big of a deal that you actually get free packs. Now, you could say you get your dailies every day, but obviously those aren't exactly free. I'm going to take another stab at this because I think you're right. I think that they could do things to encourage people to play with the new cards and in interesting ways. 100% could. Don't know if they're going to. That's definitely up to their event organizing. But I think if you want to see actual meta shift starting from day one and interesting matchups using new cards, the challenge becomes what got us into the pickle that we got into with Eldraine, which is make the new cards good. Mm-hmm. Which, if you tweak that dial too far, you get Eldraine, and you get all the things that happened around Eldraine and after Eldraine. And this set is a very safe-ish set, and something we talked about on the show for the last few weeks. If a certain deck is already pushed, and you make the best cards in the set good for that deck, what is the point? Because
it's a recipe.
I'm sure that every content creator, keep in mind, content creators were paid by the eyeballs, man. Like, we need the eyeballs. So people want to see that vampires look good. I guarantee that most content creators from day one went out and grabbed some vampire decks to see what they could do. Yeah. Untapped GG says that vampires on day one, 48% win rate. So it comes out on a losing record. So, okay, could be worse. Maybe we need to tune it. Maybe we need to tweak it. Maybe we need to change it. But let me tell you something. How successful do you feel with your 48% win rate when you D-rank through Platinum? It doesn't feel successful. So let me offer you Mono White Aggro, which has a 62% win rate on day one.
How could you say something so controversial yet so brave, CovertGoBlue?
I'm just saying, when you give the best deck the best new cards, like, you don't even have to craft to play that. In fact, a lot of people playing this archetype probably didn't craft anything new whatsoever. But other ones are just like, well, I mean, I'm like 18 wild cards away from this new vampire list, and I'm 3 wild cards away from a complete mono white, and I could be winning instead of losing. They're not going to rationalize it. They're not going to analyze it the way we just talked about it. It's a feeling. It's, oh, yay, it's vampire day. I go out on the ladder, and I lose, and I lose. And screw it. Back to mono white. Let's go. I like winning. It's more fun. It's just about, the format has a few obvious decks that are too pushed. That's what it, and I think they could I think the design side of this could be tackling the diversity issue in maybe a healthier way.
Well, you raise a great point, and I think one of the things that I think is at play here is that Wizards has these design cycles, which are clearly larger than one set, right? So it's clear, for example, that they decided that Izzet was a color combination that they were going to push. And so they've released these successive sets with Izzet cards. It was clearly happening previously with Simic. And I don't know if you remember, but Simic was like kind of an edge case deck for a long time. It was like a number of sets were getting Simic cards. Like, for example, what was the counter dude? The blue green counter flash
Frilled
3/2.
Mystic.
Frilled Mystic, right?
Yeah.
So they printed Frilled Mystic, and memers like me were playing Frilled Mystic like sets before that card was actually playable, right? But eventually it all came together because they printed enough cards to make the archetype work. And so it's clear that they're doing that with Simic. It's clear that they did that with mono green. It's clear they did that with mono white. It's also clear that they wanted to kind of turn the faucet off on mono red.
Dude, this time 2 years ago, white was considered unplayable.
Unplayable.
Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so we're clearly in the midst of a design cycle where white's really pushed, Izzet's really pushed, and mono green, I think, has been pushed for a while. And they were just like, well, F it. Like, sure, we're just going to keep printing some of the best cards in the set into this archetype. Why not? Right? Like, if we're already riding high, let's just keep freaking. I don't know what the rationale is with mono green, honestly, because mono green's been like playable forever. It's been literally playable forever.
It was considered like people didn't respect it though. Again, you go back 2 years, like the Steel Leaf Paladin deck. There was Llanowar Elves and Steel Leaf Paladin legal and standard, and people didn't respect mono green. It was considered like a way worse than mono white, mono red, Esper control, like very tier 2 to 3. So I get it, but at some point it all bleeds together, and it's like, why do we try these other things? Like, some of this stuff is just so good, and in the meantime, I don't know, playing other strategies feels so bad. I played, I busted out, spent my 4 mythic wildcards on Chandra, Dress to Kill.
Oh, did you? Okay.
And I built a few different decks, a burn deck, kind of a more ramp mid-rangey deck. Some were Izzet, some were mono red. Play queue, because it's the middle of the freaking night. I'm falling asleep. I don't care about ranked right now. Play queue with a new Chandra deck. 11 games against mono white, 7 against mono green, 0 against anything else.
Oh,
like it hit the matchmaker in that perfect spot where they said, you're just getting this, and it's all you're getting. And it was
my goodness,
not fun.
Yeah, so how motivated were you, CovertGoBlue, after that run to keep playing good old Chandra?
That deck has been deleted, and I will have nightmares about what happened to my mythic wildcards.
I feel like you probably went into the bathroom and pulled out your like flashy thing from Men in Black, and you just flashy thinged yourself on the spot, right?
That was the only way to sleep. I was too salty and raging to fall asleep. It was a disaster. I'm so tired today.
Oh my God. So yeah, and unfortunately there are just too many stories like that. And so I think that unfortunately, CovertGoBlue, you ran into that perfect Venn diagram of like, it was like Magic design kind of boning you, and then arena matchmaking kind of boning you, right?
I will say this. You probably slept through all this or had to work. Both are acceptable. At least I could join games.
Yes. It was only a problem for a short time, and I have to give them props. Once they pushed out that quick emergency fix, it was pretty much as smooth as butter, right?
That short time for a content creator was the first 3 hours of the set's legality in Eastern Standard prime time for most of the streamers who use that time slot. So
fair enough.
I understand that this is no big deal for you West Coasters, but for the people who stayed up late in Europe and for the East Coasters who are doing a 9 to 5 streaming gig, it was a disaster. A disaster. That you couldn't even join a match with Sparky to show off the new cards or decks. Like you were just locked out, and a lot of people joined the draft queues right away and just lost their drafts. Now, apparently you can get refunds by opening support tickets, so do that if you lost a draft, please. So public announcement. But what the hell? Did we bung... I filled time on my stream while we couldn't make matches. I pulled up a Yahoo Finance video of Chris Cox talking about how Wizards of the Coast has revenue up 32% last quarter, year over year. That's over 2020. That's not 2020. That's over 2020. 32% increase on what they call the leading digital CCG client in the world, Magic Arena. And they can't
really
do a set launch and get the first few hours right. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we could belabor this point, but I'm just going to mention it in passing that, like, if this were an unprecedented issue, like, oh, whoops, for this event, it didn't go right, we had to push out a fix, whatever. Why is it every time, Kovac? Why is it every literal time? It's every
time.
Whoops, we didn't see this coming. Like, come on, dude. What's going on?
I mean, it's acceptable, right? That's what it's saying, is that it's acceptable. Like, Legend, a really good YouTuber, had a 12-minute video that he put up because he couldn't get in a match. He and I make similar videos. 40 minutes to an hour is our runtime. He put up a 12-minute video with one game and he couldn't join another match. Awesome content.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm sure Crokies was enjoying it.
He went to bed. He gave up. Yeah, he gave up. And that is a loss, because whatever you think of Crokies, he's the most watched Magic streamer.
Yeah, he probably had like 4,000 or 5,000 people on his channel.
Yeah. I mean, he packed it in because you just couldn't make a game. I sat around watching the cinematic trailer, MTG Remy videos. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Yeah. We got through it, but every time, come on. Anyway, I'm sure they didn't just come here to hear the complaints.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't, A, of all, just highlight that the technical issues continue, and B, of all, highlight that like some of the new set blues also continue. And so I think that transitions us into the standard meta, which we've both been looking forward to talking about. So CovertGoBlue, you led off by saying that there are a bunch of exciting new cards, but you hate the meta. Now, does this go beyond just the whole like mono white got Thalia, mono green got a wolf? Is it got good cards? End of story. Like, is that where the story ends, or like, is there more to your distaste of the current format?
So I think that there are some new cards that add wrinkles to matchups, but I think that the only thing that's really interesting is to figure out which blue tools to beat other blue decks and the two main aggro decks with. I think that's like the only chess match that's going on. So to kind of answer this, it's probably best to dive into like individual cards and be like, well, this is why it's really interesting, but then here's the application. So let's go to Hull Breacher Horror.
Okay.
Let's release the Kraken.
Bang.
Yeah, let's unleash the freaking Kraken.
I don't know if you saw my tweet. Literal first rare opened in the set.
Oh, you must. How are you feeling about it now? Did you actually play it, or I'll let you kind of lead the way then?
Yes. I put Kraken in, admittedly, a deck that was probably not the right shell for it. Laughably bad, vomit-inducingly bad. One of the worst 7-drops I've ever played in a Magic
like
deck.
Saltire Simic Ramp, didn't you?
I did. So basically, hey, I didn't have high hopes. All right, I'll put it right out there. Not a great test of the card. I saw a couple of people tweeted at me, hey, I tried some Simic lists, a couple Kraken lists. Why don't you try it out? And I was like, sure. You know what? Let's see if this is a card worth ramping into. Yeah, it's not a card worth ramping into.
He's blaming Twitter.
Hey, I wouldn't have done it, man. I wouldn't have done it you know me and that card, dude. We are not friends.
Okay. Yeah, I got you.
So we've successfully answered the question of, is the Kraken just a strong 7-drop card that you can just kind of drop into any deck and expect it to perform? Abso-freaking-lutely not. So that was the question that I answered for myself. So now let's pivot over to you, CovertGoBlue. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of good insights for us about like where it is actually good, if it is good. But I don't know. Like, I know that you were playing with it. So how did it pan out for you?
I think this card is it's a paradigm shifting thing in that you don't have to be the Epiphany deck anymore, because when the Epiphany deck runs into the horror deck, it becomes really hard for the Epiphany deck to resolve an Epiphany. You can build it all around your sorcery gets beat by my flash card. Because if you pair any instant at all with the horror, you can bounce the Epiphanies and they're just spending 7 mana and getting nothing for it. And like I said, if you ever actually untap and have mana and cards in hand with the card, the game is just a disaster. And if you're in a blue mirror where both players do nothing, there's no excuse not to have some cards, not to have some things to pair with the card. So it totally changes the dynamic of that matchup from being an Epiphany battle to being a Kraken battle. But my God, is Hullbreaker Horror versus Hullbreaker Horror battles disgustingly lame. Yeah. And there's no out. There's no good out. You like I am telling you, man, there's
Oh
no
my
escape
God.
when if you the Epiphany mirror was one of the dumbest mirrors ever, and we talked about this on the show before.
Yeah.
It felt like it was pointless and stupid throughout. But Hullbreaker Horror versus Hullbreaker Horror
Yeah.
mirrors are the how do you get out of this card? How do you escape just this card plus anything from either side when both people have it? I don't know, and I haven't solved it. And it comes down a lot to who has the mana to play a couple spells. But it feels so just it's mind melding. And I love Hullbreaker Horror as long as the rest of the world hasn't figured out how to play these mirrors. So like a deck that I'm running it's blue and red. That should surprise you a lot considering where the power lies in the format. And it's basically you cut the Epiphanies, you cut the Galvanic iterations, you keep Leer, you keep Unexpected Windfall, you keep Hullbreaker Horror, you keep Smoldering Egg. And I mean, if they deal with the Smoldering Egg that flips and they deal with the Leer, you eventually play the Horror and they don't get to resolve spells or have battlefields. I've played the Horror where I was probably behind by about 7 to 8 permanents on board, and I play it on end step. By the time my opponent untaps, they have nothing. Nothing. It's insane how far this card can drag you back into a game. Combined with Leer, you never run out of spells.
Gross. That's a gross combo.
Yeah. So I like it's wow, man.
So this is what it's been making me. When we were talking about it last week, it was kind of in the back of my mind that it made me wonder if people are going to be switching to Grixis decks just to get like some hand disruption to try to get it out of the hand before it becomes a problem. Do you think that that's a place that the format is likely to end up as a result?
Maybe it's something that's more. It's something that doesn't always work against Epiphany because of Foretell, but it works against the Horror because it does sit there for a long time until it doesn't. Because the other card that I've been playing a lot of, and I'm up to 4 copies in this deck that is new, is Jacob Hawken, the Inspector. Really? Because, all right, this card doesn't work the way anybody thinks it does. It's actually kind of insane. So we were talking a lot about the timing with this card, that when you tap it, you draw the card, and then you exile the card from your hand face down, and then you may pay 6, and if you do, it turns into an enchantment, and then you get a free spell. Where is there a window to respond to any of this, right? And it turns out they do have to respond to the initial tap before you decide whether or not to pay 6.
Yeah.
Not only that, there's this weird thing that happens that you can do this at instant speed. And what happens is if you do this on your opponent's end step and they don't respond to the trigger, you pay the 6. It transforms into an enchantment. And if the opponent didn't go into full control or set stops and you didn't, it
just passes the turn.
It passes straight to the upkeep trigger, brutal. And you have a free spell available if it's an instant speed spell. Yeah.
Arena. Fix yourself, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's rough.
Oh, yeah. If it's your opponent's end step and they might pay for this Jacob Hawken, you have to set stops. Like, you need to set stops on the end step and the upkeep, because there's an opportunity there to still, like, divide by 0 the enchantment, or to interact with it somehow before they get their free spell on their turn. But Arena doesn't give you the chance. Arena just skips right through, and next thing you know, you're sitting there like, oh, I can play this Leer for 0 now. I can play this Horror, this Hullbreaker Horror, and that's a combo, by the way. I can play this Hullbreaker Horror for 0 now. Yeah,
that's right, and you get to choose, right? Because you choose the discard.
Yep, that's right. So you just set it all up.
Remind me how that card works. You discard into exile. Is that how it works?
I'll read the text on the front side. Yeah. Draw a card, tap it, draw a card, then exile a card from your hand face down. You may look at the card for as long as it remains exiled. You may pay for blue. If you do, transform Jacob Hawken, Inspector, into Hawken's Insight, legendary enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library face down. You may look at the card for as long as it remains exiled once for each of your turns. And that's a big deal. You may play a land or cast a spell from among cards exiled with this without paying its mana cost. So this card and Leer have like kind of melded for me, because you do not want to play this with counter spells.
Yeah.
You also don't want to play it with Memory Deluge, because you play it for 0, you actually get nothing.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
They thought about that, right? I'm
It
sure they thought
oh
about that interaction.
it hurts me. It hurts because that's like my two of my favorite blue cards can't play together anymore.
Oh my God.
But
That's
it's so
awesome.
like the card is really good between
Mm,
I feel and the matchmaker's been giving me a lot of blue matchups. Plus, there's just a lot of Is It and High Mythic anyway. I feel
yeah.
invincible with 4 Jacob Hawken Inspectors and 4 Smoldering Eggs. Like,
Mm,
they have to keep dealing with my 2 mana cards. And eventually, I'm going to Unexpected Windfall and then play Hullbreaker Horror. And they're never
mm,
going to resolve anything. And I'm not even going to counter any spells. I'm just going to bounce spells on the stack the whole game. I don't even have
mm.
counter spells in my blue deck right now. And I'm beating other blue decks. It's gross.
So it becomes like a mana fight, right? It's just like how much did that spell cost? How much did my response cost? Can I keep cards, available to cast, all that kind of stuff. I feel like, dude, one of the biggest beats on Hullbreaker Horror is that 8 toughness. Like you can tell that they thought about it. They were like, we want this thing to be able to block Hall of Storm Giants, right? And that's so nasty, dude. Like, at least give us that. At least give us a good attack. At least make us pay the freaking Ward 3 to deal with that, right? But no, it just chump
Stop
attacks into
hating.
it.
Stop hating on the horror. This is all good stuff. We should just be clowning on like these freaking lands, these free roll 7/7s.
It's
We should be
you could
flashing
tell
in and
it's
eating them, baby.
you know what? It just bothers me that like you could tell that they designed it that way. It's no accident, and it just tilts me.
Just
Anyway,
I mean, come on, release the Kraken. Come on, you got to be excited about this card at some point. Did you ever try it in anything good?
no, I mostly just because I haven't been playing like good Kraken decks. I played against it once. It beat me, although it was one of those situations where like any 7 drop from the opponent would have beaten me. Like they could have played an Onyx, they could have played anything, right? I was already out of gas. So I mean, sure, it was powerful. It's powerful when it resolved. Um, I
Have you
mean,
tried Jacob Hawken yet, or are you more
no.
inspired to after this discussion?
Yeah, Jacob, it like hearing you talk about Jacob, it does sound pretty sweet. Especially like it does sound to me like it's fitting nicely into those kind of control shells that you like to play.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's also it's underrated how if you just put this out on turn 5, like the opponent like has to stop what they're doing because Jacob's about to ruin the game that they're
yeah,
used to. They have to
yeah.
like, whoa, hold up, what's this? How do I kill it? When do I kill it? Like
Well, and it
they
just has
have
so
to
much
respond to the
freaking
window.
text on it,
Yeah,
right? Like it's just one of those things where you're just unlikely to play well against it the first couple of times it comes down. So that's cool, man. I'm really glad that the inspector's getting some good play from you, and it's been kind of living up to its potential. Because I think that card's really sweet, and I'm glad that it's not like a total unplayable. I'm glad it's not like a Strixhaven level of unplayable flip card.
yeah, and it's another card that warps the blue mirrors. So the blue mirrors have gone from being unplayable miserable to being unplayable exciting to being, and I think it'll get to this point when the Epiphany deck takes a backseat and people are in on this Hullbreaker Horror stuff. It's gonna be hell. It's gonna be the worst.
Dude, I'm just gonna be the like for concealing curtains gamer. I'm just gonna be the freaking hand hater, dude. That's my answer. I'm not interested in fighting that fight. I just want to like solve the problem before it's even a problem.
Have you played some Concealing Curtains yet?
No, I haven't. So let me tell you what I've been playing. The archetype which really jumped out to me from this set was what I would like to call zombie control.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is basically I've been trying to work on like the Demir Rogues ish deck of this format, right? So
You
the decks
triggered
that
a lot of people with that one. You're
oh,
triggering people, but I get it.
dude,
I get it. Go on.
it's been so much fun, man. It's just been so much fun. So I've been playing the what is it called? Skull Zombie, I believe. It's the exploit zombie, which anytime a non token creature exploits, you get a 2/2 zombie.
Yeah.
This card's been every bit as good as I thought it might be. So one of the amazing play patterns of the deck that you line up very easily is you go turn one, either you play your Shambling Ghast or you play your Eye Twitch. Turn two, you play Skull Zombie.
It's
sack your
just for people at home, it's Skull Scab, and for our editors,
Skull Scab. That's what it is. Okay, yeah. So Skull Scab. So you play the Skull Scab on turn two. You sack the thing. You get a free zombie, and then you get whatever value you got out of your sacked dog. All right. On turn three, you play your Stinger, and you sack Skull Scab, and you get another free zombie. So now you've gotten 2 free zombies out of Skull Scab, right? So now you have a Stinger and 2 zombies on the board. This is turn 3. You've also drawn 2 cards. And it's like pretty much as nasty of an opening as it sounds like it is, especially if you're on the play. The nice thing about this is that you can untap, and if you have the perfect curve, you have Overcharged Amalgam in your hand, which is the 3/3 exploit Scab, which counts as a spell when you exploit a creature. And so I've had so many games with this deck where you just get out like a fast board of zombies in the first couple of turns, and then you just protect them with your Scab. As soon as your opponent tries to wrath the board or do anything else, you counter it. Now you have an extra threat, and it plays that very, very familiar game. It feels a lot like the Simic flash decks of yore, where like you try to interact, they counter it and put a threat down. You try to interact, they counter it and put a threat down, and you're just dead, right? So anyway, this is I actually recommend, like, for any crafties looking for like a really new archetype in the format, I would definitely recommend this deck. I've been having a lot of fun playing it. Another cool thing to note about it is that the only 4 rares that I had to craft to build this deck were the Overcharged Amalgam. The entire rest of the list is commons and uncommons.
Wow.
And a lot of them, like if you've played any kind of like Rakdos deck or whatever, you'll already have like the rest of the shell, basically, because it's basically just your whole like treasure sack package. And the deck's been doing, I mean, it's I'm not ready to like give a pronouncement on how good I think it is, but I've had positive win rates. I think I'm like 60% in best of 1, and I think I'm something like 66% in best of 3. I'm currently in Diamond. The deck, when it's running well, it feels unbeatable. I've had excellent matchups against Izzet, which have felt great. You kind of have all the tools that you need. You have hand disruption, you have early aggression, you have interaction. A lot of times I've managed to kill my Izzet opponents before they even reach 7 mana. So it has the potential to be a nightmare matchup. They do, of course, if they're running enough copies of the 2 damage Wrath. What's that one called?
Cinderclasm.
Yeah, so if they're running enough copies of Cinderclasm, they can get you in the right spots and kind of slow you down a lot. But that's the only problem I run into. So that was one of my draws to playing the deck, was that I think it has a really good Izzet matchup. And then, of course, you get to run sweet cards like Crippling Fear, which, you know, against mono white or any of these new tribal decks is just a total destroyer. So, you know, if you spend the first couple turns like getting a little wide zombie board and you take a little bit of damage, you avoid doing some trades, and then you just Crippling Fear your opponent's vampire board away, and the game's pretty much over.
Yeah,
so
that sounds fun.
Yeah, I found that card to be good. It's been good against 3 decks that I've played. It can be fairly good against werewolves as long as you don't let them get their wolves flipped. Because surprising number of those wolves have 4 toughness when they flip, which is really annoying. 4 toughness is definitely like the inflection point in terms of toughness in this format. Parasitic Grasp no longer kills them. Crippling Fear no longer kills them. None of the red burn spells kill them unless you have like, you know, the dragon turning it on or something like that. So anyway, I'll post a link to the deck in the show notes. I think it's been really fun for me, and like I said, it's a total budget deck. So if you just want something fun to play, and especially if you're like one of those memers who really enjoyed Dimir Rogues, this deck, it's very different and it's not nearly as good as that deck was, but a deck can still be quite good without having to clear the bar of being as good as Dimir Rogues.
I'm looking at the list on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, at ArenaCraftPod on Twitter. We
Yeah.
had some similar ideas. The version that I was playing didn't run the Skull Scab or the Blade Stitch Scab. It ran 4 shades, 4 Skyclave shades.
Oh, so
And
you're a bit more of an aggressive
and it
build.
ran 2 Graft Reavers, the 2 mana 3/3 that does 1 damage to you, exploits to destroy a
Yeah.
planeswalker.
Yeah.
So like that spot was different, but most of the rest of the deck was the same. And I found the deck really potent. I also had 4 Divide by Zeros instead of 2 Divide and 2 Syncopate. And instead of your Crippling
Okay.
Fear and some of your removals, I had Meat Hook Massacre.
Yeah, I tried Massacre and it was so I had such a hard time figuring out like whether I wanted to play it, how many I wanted to play, which spots I wanted to play it in. It has obvious possibility of like you have a wide board of zombies and then you just use the Massacre to finish your opponent off. You can also accrue some incidental advantage over the game because you're sacking a bunch of stuff. I found it hard to fit in myself, but yeah, I definitely think that there's potential. And so it might just be correct to run that and just like learn how to pick your spots with it.
I've got a problem. It's called Divide by Zero Meat Hook Massacre. I'm addicted. I can't. It's hard for me to stop. But
Fair enough.
I think that it's kind of trying to do the same thing. I found the shades were like killers in the
Really?
deck. Yeah, I found
Interesting.
Skyclave Shade was an absolute beast. And usually I hate that card, especially in best of one, because it can't
Yeah.
block. And but man, when you have Meat Hook Massacre to kind of get you life back and clear the board so you can be defensive, Crippling Fear would probably feel similar, although not as good now that you have more non-zombies. But the Shade hitting for 3, the Fell Stinger hitting for 3, the Amalgam hitting for 3. It was like I was counting to 21. You know, we need 7 hits for 3
Yeah.
and the game
Yeah.
is over. And I can't tell you how many times I flashed in Amalgam and sacked nothing just
Oh
because
yeah.
I wanted a little bit faster. And then the next turn, the opponent tried to sweep the board or whatever, and I divide by 0 and they're dead. Like,
Yeah.
we get into these spots game after game where it's like turn 4, turn 5. It doesn't feel like either player did much. It doesn't look like we have a good presence, but here it is. Okay, I make a Shade and maybe I sack it to Fell Stinger and I bring it back. My opponent spends their turn, I don't know, deploying like some stuff, taking like a middling turn. I untap and now I have Overcharged Amalgam and I hit you for 6. It's on. Like the countdown is on. You're gonna die really fast. And any
Yeah.
interaction you try to have that's like big is gonna get wrecked. So I found it a very sneaky deck.
I agree. Yeah, you can really get your opponents, especially when they're just not really sure what you're going for. Um, I'm not sure whether this is going to be like a tier deck in the format, but the initial results have been convincing enough that I think it's an archetype worth exploring. I do think that there is like a potential best version of the deck, and I think that it could actually be really good in certain meta games. So I wouldn't be surprised if this deck ends up being some kind of a player, especially if like in the next couple of sets they bulk it out a little bit, give us a few more good flash threats.
Don't look now, but Crokies ran a tournament. Did you see this?
No.
Okay, he ran a tournament today, and the top 16 is tomorrow. It's single elimination. It's new standard, so literally it's like been out for 2 days, and there's a tournament here. And so one of the 5 decks has all the cards that we're kind of talking about here: Shambling Ghast, Eye Twitch, Overcharge Amalgam, Fell Stinger. It also has Sedgemoor Witch and Jadar, Ghoul Collar of Nephalia for the 2 drops. Whereas
Sedgemoor is something I didn't consider, but that could be really interesting.
But it also has 3 Hullbreaker Horrors.
Oh god.
So don't look now, but your baby might end up corrupted when people figure this out, because ramping into Hullbreaker Horror with Deadly Dispute, it's so powerful. It's so strong, Arjuna.
Oh man. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think that whatever the best build of this archetype is, I feel like it's got legs, and honestly, it has felt more compelling to me than either of the other 2 kind of extant tribes. Or I guess there's 3, right? There's well, no, humans is probably still the best. But but like the vampires and the werewolves, like I think they're strong. Let's talk about vamps, right?
Okay.
Because obviously a lot of people have been trying it. I did the latest game that I played. It was actually like probably like one or two matches before I hopped on with you. I was doing some streaming today. I played against a really low curve vampire deck, which seemed pretty well built. And it definitely did pound me, pounded me in the face. I lost, it was a best of three match. And it was just like basically playing like, the one drop aggro vampire, basically like all of the two drop vampires, notably absent CGB. I don't know if you've seen a single copy of the Red Cemetery dude cast. I have not yet.
I've seen a few on YouTube. It hasn't happened against me.
Yeah. So I actually have not seen that dude, but I have seen plenty of the 3-2 that we were talking about. And that card, I think, has been doing some pretty good work. The card I've been really impressed with is the other two drop, which puts counters on the rest of the team. Do you remember what that vampire is called?
That's the older one, right?
Yeah, it's
So
from Midnight Hunt.
yeah. Oh gosh, vampire
I
names. Here's
I know,
vampire
right?
socialite, right?
Vampire Socialite. That
Okay.
sounds right. So
Vampire
yeah,
socialite.
and then the one from this set again is called Blood Tithe Harvester. So I think both of these are just rock solid. They go right into a Rakdos vampire list. And I think, another card which I still think is pretty good is also from Midnight Hunt. It's the 3/3 first striker that basically like lets you draw cards
Yeah,
if you do your
Florian.
opponent
That is
damage.
Florian the Voldaran Scion.
Yeah, so I think Florian, even though it's like a 3/3, I actually I think you can, if you do damage to your opponent and then you do it like, no, you have to play it pre-combat. So
Yes.
so so if you play it on turn 3 pre-combat and you get a hit in, it can still draw you a card. So that is kind of like pseudo ETB effect, right? Which I think mitigates some of the otherwise downside of it just being a 3/3 for 3 that doesn't do anything the turn it comes down. So I think, I think like some kind of Rakdos Vamps list playing those cards and like, some of the other obvious choices, it has looked fairly compelling. It definitely has a crippling fear problem, and I think it might just have a control problem in general, where I feel like it might be pretty easy to just dismantle it. What do you think?
Have you ever tried to use any of the vampires you mentioned to beat a shambling ghast and or an eye twitch?
I mean, it's a good point.
It's a
Point.
good point. I spent a lot of time with this archetype for my first video and for my first couple minutes of stream, and it matters. Trust me.
Yeah.
They're like when your opponent plays turn one shambling ghast, you might end up looking at your whole hand and going, "Nope."
You know, I Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like I mean, I've played my like 4 Shambling Ghast, 4 Eye Twitch deck against one of these decks, and I felt like it should have been a killer matchup, right? I was like, I'm going wide with zombies. I'm playing these one drops. I have counter spells. Like I felt, I can play Crippling Fear. I just felt like it should go all my way. I lost to it. Maybe I was just running
What
bad.
happened?
They got down really quickly and they put counters on the whole team, and they just were too fast for me, basically.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
it can happen. Sometimes being on the draw is being on the draw.
I mean, this is what I've been trying to figure out, right? Is like I feel like I'm usually pretty good at playing, getting in some reps with a deck and then just saying, oh, I don't think it's very good, or oh, this feels promising, or whatever, right? Playing the zombie deck, it was really challenging for me to figure out whether it's just inconsistent or whether I was running poorly. I feel like the deck should be incredibly consistent because you've got so many dorks. I'm playing Village Rights, I'm playing the Dispute. There's so much card draw. The Stinger draws cards, right?
Yeah.
And so I felt like it should be a very consistent deck list. And I was running into mana issues. I was running into flood issues. I was running into having, having my disputes, but no dorks to sack, or vice versa.
You're running into magic issues.
Well, and see, that's what I'm trying to figure out, right?
Yeah.
Is like, so am I just getting magicked, or is the deck not good enough?
Well,
right?
here's the thing. You need certain synergies to come together for your deck to work.
Yeah.
Some decks don't. They're called mono white and mono green.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of a beat, right? Is that
It
if there's a
is.
deck that's as good as yours, but all they need to do is just like have any lands and have any spells, whereas your cards need to synergize, it's kind of rough. I will say that like having running an exploit deck with specifically Shambling Gas versus any Thalia deck feels amazing because
Yes.
they're like, I'll tax your spells. You're like, oops, no spells, all creatures. Oh, and your Thalia's dead. Sorry, bro.
That's pretty
So
nice.
that felt really good. So I feel like Shambling Ghast is like just like one of the pillars like holding the format up against Thalia. And I actually
It's
think it's going
trying.
to be, yeah, I think Shambling Ghast is like more important than ever. I think it's just a really great card.
Yeah, white is far from unbeatable. It has some very bad matchups, and most of them play black. In fact, the whole like reason to play black in the format is that white is so good and so popular, probably
Yeah.
because my blood, basically a mono black blood money deck with 4 Meat Hooks and 3 Blood in the Snows and 3 Lulths and 4 Sorens and Fell Stinger instead of like Skullport Merchant for the most part. I was just having a lot of fun trouncing every version of white aggro that I came up against, just slapping them around. It was really fun. As long as I drew enough lands to cast my hooks and get my treasures and cast my blood on the snows, it was a good time. And it felt like I had infinite cards because of Fell Stinger and Sorin and Lulth. Like, there was
Mm-hmm.
just always so much going on. It was by far the best Sorin deck I got to play. I tried Sorin in a number
Mm-hmm.
of shells. It definitely didn't work in like the Demir zombie black flash kind of shell. It definitely didn't work very well in vampires, but it worked really well in mono black control style. Like
Yeah.
it's just a perfect card in that deck, and it hits the curve in a spot you weren't
Mm-hmm.
even using before. And you know how the nut draw with that deck was Shambling Ghast into Lulth, like Shambling Ghast, Deadly Dispute Lulth turn 3.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
now you can have Eye Twitch, Deadly Dispute, Sorin
Into Sorin.
so
Yeah.
you have another path to a turn 3 planeswalker, which on the play, those two planeswalkers with card advantage and bodies, that those kind of classic planeswalker abilities can still run away with games. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's such a good fit, right? Because I feel like it's kind of funny, but like I feel like the blood money decks in the past were already kind of like stealthily super friend decks.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the inclusion of Sorin really cements them as being like, yeah, like this is really a planeswalker deck. Like your planeswalkers are your win cons, and everything else is just like finding you your walkers, protecting you your walkers, or getting them back from the graveyard. So yeah, I mean, just like we said in the review, like jump straight into that deck. And in my opinion, I feel like it's a perfect fit. And the only question is like, how many do I run? And is it the best planeswalker for me to be running? But do you think that it like solidly, would you say solidly yes? Like if you're playing a mono black Blood on the Snow deck with Lolth and stuff, like you absolutely should add some number of copies of this to your deck.
Sorin?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that Onyx was always like something you
Kind of
reached for.
borderline, right? It
Yeah,
was kind of
and
like a
Valky.
one-off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're so expensive, and Divide by Zero
Yeah.
is such a card, and
Yeah.
they're like too slow against every version of Izzet, negate fodder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sorin takes that fight to the battlefield quicker. It comes down faster. It forces the opponent to start being more defensive faster, and I've felt like Professor Onyx has been out of my deck since I started seeing a lot of Galvanic iteration in the meta, but
Yeah.
has still been lurking in other decks. Same with Valky, I haven't had in my deck for a long time, but other people still play it. I think in the meta we have, it's Sorin. I don't know how you defend. In the mirror, I guess, is where Professor Onyx is a card and Valky are a card, so maybe they're a sideboard strategy if you want to play best of 3. But I can't defend them in best of 1 when you can be on the battlefield as fast as Sorin is.
Yeah. I also just think the life gain is really crucial.
It
And
is.
it's like the life gain from Onyx is super crucial, but oftentimes you're just dead before you really get that online. So yeah, I do think like just being able to kind of, because all that deck really needs to do is stay alive, right? Like if you live long enough against any kind of creature deck, you're gonna win. So yeah, I like that as well.
Well,
I also just like the fact that Sorin can drop and just make 2 vampires right off the bat, you know? Like you make a vamp, if no one damages Sorin, you can make another vamp, and sure you're cashing it in. But just being able to get 2 creatures out of it, if that's what you need, I think is really good.
yeah, and their lifelink is really good if you just want to make bodies and make Mono White's life more difficult as you try to bridge and take your time to get up to Blood in the Snow.
Yeah.
How good is Fellstinger, man? How good is the unicorn stinging mega zombie scorpion?
Okay, so I don't know if I'm just have a crush or whatever, but I have been loving this thing.
Dude, it's not just you.
Dude, isn't that card just busted? I love it. I love it.
I had this situation where I was like, I was down a ton of cards, like a ton of cards, and my board was like an Eye Twitch and a Fellstinger and a Meat Hook Massacre, and my opponent was at like 7 but had a whole bunch of creatures on the ground. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like gonna lose this game, and I untap and I swing in with my Eye Twitch for 1, and I like cast Divide by 0 on my Fellstinger. And I recast my Fellstinger, and I sacrifice my Eye Twitch, and I draw 2, and I draw like another Fellstinger and another Divide by 0, and then I target the opponent. And remember, I have a Meat Hook, and then I divide my Fellstinger and target them again, and they're dead.
Just drain them out.
They're dead, dude. Arjuna. It's a burn spell.
You know what my favorite thing to do is? Like, whether your opponent's a 2 or not, my favorite thing to do is just Agadeem's Awakening for 6.
Ooh.
You just go up the chain, right? And it's just like, it's gross. It's gross.
I can't believe you're not trying the Graph Reaver. I've had a number of times where like I was getting stuff back and I just bring back Graph Reaver and exploit something and kill their Wren. Like, I just as like a 1 of or a 2 of, the card's actually done me a lot of good.
Yeah, it sounds great. Honestly, I've just been playing it as more of a value deck, so I've been prioritizing just like getting more dorks, right? Just like, so that's why I've liked the Skull Scarb, is that you just like get more bodies on the ground. I mean, I'm high on Graph Reaver, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was right to run that in some number. Honestly, I haven't been playing against green decks, so that's part of it. Like, the matchmaker has just not been giving me green.
I think that of the big 3 colors right now, which are white, green, and Izzet, I think green got the worst of it, because like Pack Leader's a really good card, but you don't always draw it. There's only 4 of them, and you have to replace other very powerful cards to run it. And if you don't have it on turn 1, it's a much worse draw on turn 6. So I think green actually got the fewest real upgrades. So white getting better and Izzet getting better is probably bad for green. It's still a very powerful deck and still better than most of the format, but it feels like it got the fewest big buffs.
I would agree. Out of the big 3, I would agree with you. All the same, it didn't stop Rumty from going something like 30 matches undefeated.
Nothing does. Like, the guy is just the green giant. He's a poster for mono green. It doesn't matter.
He's a machine.
It doesn't matter what cards are legal.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. Yeah. He's just, he knows how to fit that particular niche. So it's not that it's not an accomplishment, and I hate to sound dismissive, but at this point, I think most of the community has checked out when he posts his screenshot of how busted mono green is on day 1.
Yeah.
Because he'll win with any mono green cards. He's that devoted to the archetype. If he posted a mono blacklist and said it was busted, the world would be like, oh my God, this must be the greatest that black has ever been. Yeah, but since it's green and since it's him, everybody's like become immune.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's kind of like, you're right. It's almost like a meme at this point, where it's like day 1 of the new set, Rumty gets #1 on Arena playing mono green. What else is new?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. He's done it for over a year.
Yeah, so I mean, total badass. Yeah, definitely. If you're a mono green mage and you're not aware of Rumty, go start worshiping at the altar right now. He's just a great guy as well.
That's true.
So, but I mean, hard agree. So this is, I know we've kind of spent a long time of talking about these zombie decks, but one of the reasons I got excited about this archetype that we're talking about here is that I felt like it could have a great match against mono white, and it could have a great match against Izzet. And I feel like those are basically the 2 best decks in the format right now. Mm-hmm. So if I'm right about that, and if people can build it properly, I actually think it could be a player. And interestingly enough, it could be one of those decks that's like not necessarily a ladder deck, but is a tournament deck.
It's one of the only things that has enough interactive pieces that kind of fight both ways to have a real shot. And
Yeah,
that's why people are excited. It also has a lot of options. And Demir,
yeah,
people just generally like a kind of underserved color combination like Demir, which hasn't been,
yeah,
I would say, really, really good in a very long time. So
yeah.
it's always popular, even when it's not good. So I think there's hope. I think that some version will at least have a shot. And when I say Demir and popularity and strength, I don't mean rogues. That was like the weirdest of outliers. Though we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe they hang in there.
So let me tell you, one of the cards that I've consistently find myself boarding in this format, and which I will not leave home without in any black deck, is Go Blank. I feel like, in my opinion, Go Blank is like as good as it's ever been.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
and I think it's like for trying to get those Hullbreaker horrors out of your opponent's hand. I think for just clearing out your opponent's graveyard, whether they're leering about or just or like, yeah, any of these mono black decks, just being able to empty their graveyard is so important so they don't get value out of Blood on the Snow. So yeah, I've really been high on Go Blank. Let's talk about a new card that I've actually been quite high on. I have found that Parasitic Grasp has lived up to expectations. I've basically kept adding more copies to my main deck and sideboard, and I've not been disappointed by that card. What do you think about that?
Haven't played it, haven't played against it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. I haven't really seen anyone playing it, but I got so much play out of it. It could be because of the matchups that I've been getting, but it's good against werewolves. Most of those wolves come down as humans. It's good against mono white. And there's just like a surprising number of other creatures that are incidentally humans. And then, of course, the fail case of it just being, what is it, Essence Capture? Is that the name of the spell?
That does what?
Anyway, the deal 3, gain 3, one
I,
black, black. I think
Essence
it's
Capture is
called,
the old version, right?
yeah,
So the
but
new version is called
Parasitic Grasp.
Parasitic Grasp. Okay, I got
Yeah.
it's. We're working on it. I'm working on it. Got it.
No, it's cool. It's cool. It's a new set. Anyway.
Essence Extraction.
Oh,
Actually, I
Essence
think.
Extraction. Is Capture the counter spell?
Yeah, we knew that. We knew it was something. We knew there was something
Okay.
off. We got
So
there.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, the Essence Extraction version of it has been totally serviceable for me as well. Obviously, it's not as good, but you can still just like hit your mono green opponent's creature. I do love that this can kill the werewolf pack leader. That's just like awesome. Um, so anyway, yeah, I've been really impressed with that card so far. Maybe it's just day one meta, but I've really liked it. I'm trying to think about other new cards that have been impressing me.
Well, in mono white, it's been interesting to see kind of the wrestling for mono white's one drop soul because
Oh yeah,
Thalia is showing up. Like there's no
of
question.
course.
Thalia is freaking everywhere. And the very first time I played Thalia against my green opponent, I knew, oh God, this is actually really nuts against mono green. Their Ranger
Yeah.
class didn't come down on turn 2. Their Blizzard
Ugh.
Brawl, like I Skyclaved Apt whatever creature they played on 3, and they
Yeah.
couldn't play
They couldn't
Troll
play
into
Chariot.
Blizzard Brawl, and they couldn't
Oh
play
yeah.
Chariot.
Yep.
They couldn't do either of those.
That's such a beat, dude.
And you just saw them
Oh
like
my
stare at their
God.
hand, like they snapped off like whatever their 3-drop was on turn 4, like Mammoth, and they played their land, and then you just see this pause. Like, oh no.
Oh, it's so gnarly, dude. It's so
and, then,
gnarly.
and then the next turn you see them like play a tapped land and just sit there for a minute looking at that Chariot that's
Oh
not
man.
coming down, and they're dead,
I'm
baby. But
I'm imagining curves in mono white where you go Thalia on 2 into Redain on 3, and your mono green opponent just wants to freaking flip the table, right? They're
yeah,
just like, great, all my lands come in tapped. I can't kill either of these creatures. F my life.
there was a point where I'm like at like a pretty close parity with a mono green player, and what did they do? They somehow they like kept on top. I don't remember what it was or how it was that they scried, but something happened where like they looked at their top card and kept it, and I don't remember exactly how because it's green, so it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But somehow this happened, and I remember being like, okay, they kept their top card, so it's got to be good. And I pass it back to them, and they have 4 mana, and I have a Thalia in play, and they draw their card. And then their head explodes. I'm like, they kept Chariot, but they couldn't cast it.
They kept the Chariot. Oh man. Oh man. You're just gonna see so much of that, right? Where there's like your opponent confidently moves into their turn, and then there's a pause, and then you kind of see their lands highlighted, and then eventually you see Thalia highlighted, and then they just explode.
Yeah,
like,
that's great. It's great.
That's what it's gonna be.
But
like.
The other thing in white is the battle for the 1-drops, and there's a 5/0 list in the Crokies tournament that has 4 Hopeful Initiate. So that's a card I was pretty excited about.
That was the card that you were championing.
Yep. There's another undefeated list with 4 Hopeful Initiate as well. There are multiple versions with, I'm not kidding, Code Spell Cleric.
Dude, Code Spell Cleric showed up for me on day 1 of this format. I literally hadn't seen that version of the deck in a long time. Because people were playing like the Worlds version, right? They were playing the dog version, and that kind of became the de facto list. And I literally hadn't seen it for like probably a month or more. And for some reason on day 1 of this format, it was like Code Spell Cleric Central. I have no idea what was going on. I was seeing the Spirit. It was like the Spirit Code Spell deck, right? It was the 2 spells deck. It
does look like there might be like a critical mass issue, because the other card that's actually been getting me in the way that Selfless Savior got me, the Selesnya Humans deck, and some of the mono white decks. I don't know how they do it, but Ullenbrock Escort is always in the hand with Luminarch Aspirant. Like that card, you can sacrifice it to give a creature with a +1/+1 counter indestructible or lifelink. They always have them together. I have never once seen them play this card on turn 1 and then play a Sun Gold Sentinel or a Clarion Spirit. It doesn't happen. They always have the 2 of them. And I'm always like, God, are we really doing Selfless Savior Part 2? Are we really doing this again? They always have it, man. It's disgusting.
Rough times in Whitelandia. Yeah. That's interesting. I haven't played with or much against that 1-drop training, dude. What's that one called?
The Initiate, or
the Initiate?
Hopeful Initiate?
Hopeful Initiate. That's the 1/2 with training, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched some other streamers play against that card, and it looked exactly as I thought it would, like kind of embarrassing, because like, maybe it was just people playing more controlling lists, or people who are consistently able to answer the 2-drop. But I feel like if you play that Arjuna, on 1,
if it's a streamer playing against it, you can't evaluate based on that, because streamers have the privileged God accounts to get great draws and always
I suppose
win.
They do, huh? Well, I didn't factor that in, Crafties, but there you go. You know what? All I gotta say, CGB, is I didn't get an intern.
No.
When I signed my contract with the devil to stream Magic on Twitch, there was no like intern at WotC clause. So
man, I heard they're thinking about just letting anybody do it. Just let anybody stream Magic the Gathering on Twitch. All you gotta do is like sign up and hit some buttons. That's what I heard. I'm not about that, man. I'm the cemetery gatekeeper of this graveyard, man. We gotta shut that down. I gotta keep these whitelisted streamer accounts to myself.
Oh man, we're losing our edge, CGB. What are we gonna do?
I think I'll be okay.
So okay, so but you were impressed with the trainee or whatever. And it seems to be doing some work. So maybe that is the new de facto 1-drop. I'm still not convinced after my just cursory kind of watching some games play out and whatever. But it's going to take some reps. I suppose time will tell.
I think we've done a pretty good overview of the format. Was there any other card you definitely wanted to highlight?
Good question. I wanted to talk a little bit about werewolves. I've seen a number of werewolves lists. Maybe it's just because I've been playing in like platinum and diamond and stuff, but I I saw some like 3-color werewolf lists, and at first I was like, preposterous. How could you possibly do it? And then I remembered that the mana bases are actually pretty good. And also like a lot of these like some fairly playable werewolves are 3 drops, right? So
Yeah.
so we have the Haster one. I'm so bad with
Reckless
names.
Stormseeker.
Yeah, so we have Reckless Stormseeker. I also saw people playing the graveyard eating one with Ward.
Graveyard Trespasser.
Yep, Graveyard Trespasser.
So is there anything new though? Because the mana bases were pretty good. I like Jund Werewolves and Naya Werewolves are both things that we played before.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything particularly notable that stood out to me that they were playing in these lists.
The 2/1, the
The
other pack leader, right?
What's it called?
It is a pack leader.
Is it? That's so tilting.
Yes, it is. It's Ascendant pack leader.
Dude, so the 1-drop and the 2-drop are both called pack leader.
Check it out.
That's
the 2/1 is called Ascendant Pack Leader. Pack leader is one word. The 2-drop is Werewolf Pack Leader. Pack leader is 2 words. How tilting is that?
You know what that means, CovertGoBlue, is that you're going to search on Arena for one of them and you're going to get the other one and you're going to be like, wait, what happened? What the hell's going on here?
But when you have them
so
both,
bad.
But who's leading the pack? I mean, it's either spelled one way or another. Who's the leader here?
I think this is what happens, right? Is that the Ascendant pack leader comes down on turn 1 and it's like, yeah, I got this. And then the werewolf pack leader comes down on 2 and it's like, no, you don't. It's all me. It's all me. And then the cat chariot shows up and they're just like, actually, it was us all along.
Cats and dogs working together.
Taste it, wolves.
Mass hysteria.
So anyway, but it was just interesting because I hadn't really played against any like 3-color werewolf lists before this set, and it just made me wonder if the mana was the difference. I think that was like the only 3-color shenanigan I was really seeing from my cursory play on the ladder. But here's just something that I want to say is that, again, it was very clear to me that I was just getting match made, right? And so I really feel like it's been hard for me to get my finger on the pulse of the format, especially since I've been playing a deck which is like mostly commons and uncommons. I feel like Arena's been kind of like trying to throw me some softballs or something like that.
Okay.
So that's just one thing to note, is that like if there is anything really interesting and innovative, I may have just not seen it just based on my matchmaking, because I've mostly been playing the zombie deck.
Well, it's only been 2 days.
Yeah. I've played against surprisingly little control, which surprises me because I had heard some other people saying that there was quite a lot of control going around.
It's the matchmaker. So Arena Matchmaker, nobody knows for sure how it weights what decks you play against. But when I played the zombie deck I described to you that was similar to yours with Skyclave Shades, I was playing against Death Touch Tribal and Cleric Life Gain. Yeah.
So that's it. It's like play queue nonsense, right?
And that's in Mythic. That
tells you, that's what I'm saying, is like Arena just doesn't think it's a good deck because it's all commons and uncommons.
So then today I play my Hull Breacher Horror, Is It deck.
Yeah.
I didn't play against a mono white all day. Just all black control, blue control, Is It. Like every single matchup, every game, which it's like, I'm ready for that. I like I said, I have the 4 Smoldering Eggs, the 4 Jacobs, and the 3 Hull Breacher Horrors, and it was a feast for crows, man. A feast for crows. Dude. And Krakens, baby.
You know what my biggest matchmaker tilt was on day 1? So day 1, I fired up 75% of my matches are mono white, right? I'm starting to get tilted on stream. It's really annoying, right? All I had to do to solve that issue was I main decked 2 Parasitic Grasps, 0 mono white the rest of the night. So I considered that a win. I beat them just by putting cards in my deck that the matchmaker was like, oh, we can't be having that. So, yep, that's how I sidestepped it.
Wow, you leveled Arena.
It was amazing.
Cue the comments of people telling us that we have a responsibility as influencers in the community to not spread such conspiracy theories.
Dude, I'm over it, man.
Me too.
Full tinfoil hat. Bring it. I'm not sure about the shuffler, but I'm a matchmaker truther 100%.
Oh, the matchmaking is rigged. We just don't know how. But
Yeah.
like, it doesn't make sense that we play this new zombie deck full of commons and uncommons, and we're fighting Death Touch Tribal. Like that,
Yeah.
you know, you feel it.
Yeah. You feel it. And it really is a tilt because like I build my deck against what I think is good in the meta, and
Yes.
I just don't play against it. And it's just
Yes.
annoying. So like I've had to warp my deck into something else, right? Because I want to get those wins on the ladder. And so I'm currently just playing like Demir good against random crap on the ladder deck. Like that's basically what I'm playing
At some point, we have to make a show called The Truth About MTG Arena, where we just go over how no, I'm serious. Like, because this is a big thing, because people use MTG Arena as a competitive outlet and a way to kind of assess their own skill and value and their metagaming skill. And there are things that keep it from being that. And most people don't talk about it or chalk it up to random or chalk it up to, algorithm or whatever. But like, there is a truth to, at least early in a format, you do not play against the real meta. You play against the matchmaker meta. And you can't figure out, like, you really can't. You cannot figure out if your deck is a top tier deck because you cannot get matched against another top tier deck if you build your deck a certain way. On the other hand, you can exploit it. You can build your deck with no non-basic lands and get like much easier matchups than you would otherwise. The thing is, like, people using this as a competitive outlet and as a way to kind of evaluate themselves as a player and a deck builder, they're not seeing the truth.
No.
Yeah, it's kind of, we'll have to do that show someday.
We will. The truth about Magic Arena.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk in hushed tones the whole time.
I'm going to wear actual tinfoil hat.
An actual tinfoil hat? Yeah, baby. Let's go. Let's do it. So anyway, I think I answered your question about like anything else on the ladder. Mm-hmm. Played a lot of rando decks. A lot of them weren't very good.
Anything you want to play this week? Anything on your list now after either after our show or?
Well, it's more about what I'm not going to be wanting to try. So crafties, anything in the Sultai constellation, just burn it.
Poor Arjuna.
Just burn it.
Oh, it's like, so sad.
Literally unplayable. I took my Sultai Storm the Festival deck for a spin, and that was fine. It's a solid deck. It's a strong deck. It's fine. It's whatever. It's still performing. Anything outside of that that I've tried has been like hot flaming garbage. That deck got a total of 4 cards from the new set, and you know what they were? They were 2 dual lands in one color and 2 dual lands in the other color combo, and that was it.
Man, Sultai is another one of those combos that had like a 2-year run of being pushed.
Yep.
And it's over.
They're just off it. They're off it, dude.
Yeah.
It literally, Dig Up is the only card to even consider. And I wouldn't, because it doesn't ramp you. So
okay.
Yeah.
No
so that's what
it.
that's what I'm not going to be working on is Simic or Sultai. So I'm sorry, crafties. I wanted to do the good work, but it's just not there. We have nothing new. So just play whatever Simic or Sultai list you were already having fun with and do however you were doing with it, right? What about you, CGB?
So I've been trying some of the things that I haven't been excited about. One of them is Faithbound Judge, aka Sinner's Judgment. In a blue-white, this is my win con shell. And I did figure out 2 good matchups for this card.
Okay. I'm listening, but I want to show you something.
He just left. He left. I tell you, I listened to this guy talk about Sultai. As soon as I say something about blue-white, he just up and leaves. Up and exits the building.
I'm out.
Do I have your attention now?
I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you something, CGB. These are the 2 cards that I won at my F&M draft with my friends the other night. All right. So the first one
is Faithbound
Judge.
Yep.
The second one.
Oh, Breach.
I can't get away from this card, man. Dude, I can't get away from this card.
Give in. It's so good.
Anyway, okay, so tell me about your Faithbound Judge deck.
So, first of all, it's not a Lear Hullbreaker Horror Jacob deck, like that's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
This is more of a classic like blue white with a ton of counters and card draw and memory deluge. And then Faithbound Judge trying to be a win con. I did figure out there are two matchups where you're really happy about it. Matchup number one, all the black control decks.
Oh, because they just can't remove it.
Now, when they figure out that they need an introduction to Annihilation in their sideboard, things will change. But it really is just a case of like, I've been too greedy and a bit of a snob to put that in my sideboard. Like, I do not want to pay 5 mana sorcery speed to exile a permanent and give them a card. I'm a better Magic player than that. I would rather play my way out of that difficult position than just exile it with a terrible spell. Well, now you're not going to play your way out of this.
I'm CGB. I smoke only the good lessons. Right?
Yes, that's it. So yeah, as soon as they have intro to Annihilation, it won't be as good. The other one, life gain.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't matter if they're.
I don't care,
life.
Mima. I don't care.
Yep. Nice cleric
That's
class.
awesome, dude.
Yeah. So I'm gonna keep working on the Faithbound Judge blue whitey thing because it's actually pretty fun. And I don't know that it'll be good, but it suits my play style. So and it does make the opponents who are trying to play Izzet kind of miserable. Although I don't know if they'll ever beat a Hullbreaker horror in its life. So that's one thing. The other thing I'm going to try is a current 5-0 list in the Croquis tournament, which will conclude tomorrow. So I hope this player does very well. Philippe Landim is playing Blood Money, but it has 4 copies of Edgar Charmed Groom. So, it's using Edgar as just a value package where you sacrifice it dies, and you just crank out those 1/1s.
Tokens.
Very
interesting.
Kind of crazy.
I will say I played against Edgar once, and it did not suck in our games. So I don't know if it was just that particular spot. It was good against me, but it did show me. It did show me real hard.
I played it in Vampires, and it was horrible.
Okay.
Like I hated it, and I had the mana to cast it every time, no problem. But it just never was never good. Yeah.
See, that's the thing. Yeah, I think it was in a situation where I was already losing. I still don't think the card's good.
Yeah, but I want to try it in this value shell though. It looks pretty fun. I bet mono white is tortured a bit if you get to make a lot of tokens and also sweep boards. But of course, they also exile it effectively. So I don't know. Mono white, they just exile everything. Who cares?
I feel like it's so CGB to be like, so I'm going to play this Markov card, and it's only there to get sacked to Mystical Dispute so I can start churning out tokens.
Deadly Dispute, but bingo.
That's like the most CGB thing ever.
That is, that's up my alley. And it also keeps it from getting exiled, so I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm enjoying trying these new cards, so I don't know if any of them are going to topple the big 3, but we'll get down in the first week while getting down's good before we're just thoroughly, seasoned and cynical and world weary standard players.
Play your overcharged amalgams and Jacob Hawkins now before they're making people miserable. and they're salt scooping to them. That's where we'll be in 2 weeks.
Yep. I do, I haven't played against the Jacob, so I'll take your word for it, but I do think that the amalgam is definitely a top 5 card in the set. I think you're going to see a lot of that card. I think it's going to end up being just like a total staple in some deck that you absolutely hate, and you're going to start groaning every time you see it.
Just wait till you see the Hullbreaker horror mirror, man. Just wait.
Oh man. Last story. I did have one of those never-ending Hullbreaker matchups, and for me it was life gain. So it was literally, I'm sure you've had games like this, right? Where like I had Hullbreaker down, I bounced their whole board. They just play their whole board again and gain like 25 life. And then like I bounce everything again, and then they just gain 25 life. And eventually I'm like, well, this was fun. Scoop. So anyway, I guess that's going to roll us out here. Just another Arjuna losing story. What's new? But I'm a real winner because all of you showed up to listen to me this week and every week, and that's the real win, because I love playing about, maybe the only thing I like more than playing Magic is talking about Magic, especially with my pal CGB. You can listen to us do that every week on your podcatcher of choice. We're pretty much on all of them. You can also find us at Spotify. You can watch this show live or, moving us talking on CovertGoBlue's channel. You can also catch CovertGoBlue streaming multiple times per week. And you can catch me streaming intermittently. I do tend to stream more with these new set releases. So, you'll probably see me streaming in the next couple of weeks fairly regularly. We're also going to be at GP Vegas. I guess it's not a GP.
It's called MTG Vegas.
MTG Vegas. Yeah. Thank you. This coming week. And so we're going to try to, make some kind of cool content there. I don't know quite how it's going to turn out, but there'll be something. You'll see it. You'll hear it. So keep an eye out for that. That's really exciting. We're probably going to come back from that just totally juiced up. It's going to be just like a big old magic content creator orgy.
Don't say that.
I'm looking forward to that.
God, no.
Hey, dude, it's just going to be a big old blood party. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to be going home early on that note. My wife is not going to have anything to get mad at me about.
Don't worry. Don't worry, CovertGoG, and I'll keep an eye on him.
Thank you.
Anyway, so yeah, buddy, that's going to do it for me. And how about you, CDB?
Just thanks to the patrons. You guys help keep the lights on and pay the bills and keep the editors fed. So we appreciate you. And I hope you guys have a lot of fun. No matter what I think of a format or no matter how much fun I'm having or not having, at its core, Magic is a game. Try to remember to have fun. And damn it, play some new cards.
Thumbs up, crafties. And later.
Later.